What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Two-Wheeled Rider YouTube channel. My name is Mario Orsini, and in today's video I'm going to show you the preparation we did, or at least talk about the preparation we did to both the 890 and the 1290 KTMs that we're getting ready to take on this trip to Alaska that we leave on in like 4 days. And then later on in the video we're going to go over like how the preparation went. Is there anything that I should have done that I didn't do, and you know, those sorts of things. But first off, let's hop into the 2021 890 Adventure R. My sister's going to be riding. Couple little things we did to it to get it ready, maybe a couple little modifications, but like really simple stuff. So let's go. Alright, so we actually didn't do or have to do a whole lot to prepare this bike, but a couple of things that are going to kind of stick out. If you've seen this bike in any of my previous videos, I normally have the high fender kit on it. We decided to pop it off, put the low fender kit back on, because out of the 6,000–7,000 miles we're going to be riding, all of that, but about 1,000 is going to be on the road. This thing at speed with the high fender kit does catch some wind. It's just going to be a little bit more comfortable with the low fender kit. Hopefully we don't get into any mud. That could create some problems with the low kit, but I think we'll be just fine. As we stay on the front wheel, or even the rear wheel for that matter, you notice we got brand new tires on. Went with the Dunlop Trail Max Missions. Did that for a couple of reasons. One, I've ran them before, so I have some familiarity with them. I've actually run them on this bike. I've also run them on my old 990. I don't really have anything bad to say about them. They're not the greatest road tire. They're not the greatest off-road tire, but they do both fairly well. But the big thing is they're going to last the duration of the trip, or at least I hope so. Unlike some of the other more aggressive tires that I'm going to chew up in 3,000–4,000 miles, I don't want to do a tire change on this trip. So Dunlop Trail Max Missions mounted on the bike. The only other things that I really did to it, serviced the air filter on it. This one's got the Rottweiler air filter kit. It'd gotten a little dirty from all the off-road riding we've done, so we've got a fresh one in here, freshly oiled. In addition to that, as I was going over the bike, I took a look at the sprocket and chain. Notice the front sprocket was showing some signs of wear. It's got a brand new chain and sprocket kit on it, despite the fact that it's only got about 6,500 miles on the bike. But I didn't want to take off on a trip and take the chance of that thing stretching out or not making it, so brand new drive kit on it. And while we'll get into the luggage and the other things we're gonna have on the bike, how we pack, I am going to talk about this tank bag because it did require a slight modification to the bike. I don't even know how to operate this thing, to be honest with you. But anyway, this is one of the GV bags, and we tried a few different. These things are supposed to be quick release. There we go. So we'll get a close-up on it here. This is the ADV kit that they make, to fit on this one. It obviously sits back a little bit. My sister ordered one of these kits, but her GV tank bag she wanted to use set back too far, so big shout out to my buddy Pete for letting us borrow his. It's just a small little tank bag on there. I wish she gets sunglasses, ball cap, whatever she wants to put in there. That was it. The oil was already fresh on this thing. That's about all the preparation we did to this. Like I said, air filter, tires, low fender kit, new chain and sprockets. Let's talk about the 1290 next. Little bit more prep work to it, but not a whole lot. All right, so now on to the 1290, and I'm cheating here so I don't forget. Fairly straightforward. Engine oil change and filter. Service the Rottweiler air intake on this one. I don't have the fancy new one that they have, so I had to remove the tank, but it takes me like 15 minutes at this point. So got that service. New Dunlop Trail Max Mission tires on it, just like we got on the 890. I don't think I've ever run those on this bike before. I'd have to go back and look at my service manual or service records. New chain and sprocket kit, OEM, and also new chain guides. I think the chain on this one had around 20,000 miles on it, so it was time for a new one. Put new rear brake pads on, also new battery. The battery just wasn't holding the charge anymore, so we got a new battery on it. And then I think the only other thing we did is, or I say we, it's me working on it, and I'll show you a close-up. On the rear cylinder, there's the little valve cover bolt gaskets. One of them's always seeped a little bit, regardless of whether I have a new one on or not. So I've always used a little bit of Honda Bond on it. Another one was starting to seep, used a little Honda Bond on it. And then I went out and did a shakedown test. let's just put it this way. There is plenty of Honda Bond sealing it up now. I don't have to worry about any oil leaks on the bike moving forward, at least knock wood. But that's about it for preparation on both the 890 and 1290 before we head out on this trip. All right, so we're back from our 6,000 mile trip to Alaska. Apparently I haven't changed shirts in the last month. And we're going to talk about how the bikes did. We went over some of the things we did to prepare them. I'm going to tell you how they performed on the trip. At this point, we're going to start with the 890, which when we left had about 6,400 miles on it. Now it's got about 12,500 miles on it. So kind of boring. Not the trip itself, but you know how the bikes perform. There's nothing like crazy to talk about. Coming into North Pole, Alaska, noticed there was something in the tire, so when we got into Fairbanks, went ahead and took care of that. Turns out it was a 2-inch wood screw. Pulled that out, plugged the tire. Plug's still in there, it's still holding just fine. So, you know, that's about it. I guess the only other thing to talk about is the fork seals on the front of the bike here. Everything was good until we got back to Fairbanks, and I noticed the fork seals were leaking on it. It wasn't the worst I've ever seen, and I've done some videos on it, you know, how to actually rebuild these. I'll link that up there. Also, just how to clean them. I'll link that up there as well. I just cleaned them out and packed them with grease, and they held the rest of the trip home, which was probably at that point like another 2,500, 3,000 miles, something like that. I did have to adjust the chain once on it, but right around the midway point. It's a brand new chain and sprocket. As you guys know, new chains usually stretch just a little bit. It wasn't really too far out of adjustment. It was like a turn or two on each of the adjusters on the back. That's it. Otherwise, bike performed flawlessly. My sister did add a sheepskin, not like full seat cover, but like pad to it, which helped out. And the only other thing that there is to talk about before we hop over to the 1290 is I'll show you the air filter, which I have a fresh one oiled up over here, but I thought I'd show you the other one. Had I had to do over, especially since she rode behind me a lot of the trip, I should have brought a spare air filter. Now, if you're running the paper style, you're probably not going to really mess with that on a trip. Because I'm running the Rottweiler air intake on this thing, I probably should have brought a second one. That being said, I'm going to show it to you. I have popped it off already, though I'm going to show it to you in the bike. Nothing got through the filter that I can tell, but yeah, it needs a fresh one. So let's take a look at it, and then I'll tell you about the 1290. Yeah, she's a little dirty. Let me just say before we go any further, sorry about the production values. I'd love to be outside filming this video instead of in the garage, but it's in the upper 90s. It's humid as can be. There's storms blowing through. And if I don't film today, who knows when this is going to get made. So let's talk about the 1290. This is a 8-year-old bike now, I guess. It's got, it had 62,000 plus before we took off. It now has over 68,000 miles on it. It did just fine. Much like the 890, fork seals were leaking on it when I got to Cold Foot, so cleaned those up, packed them with grease. It's good. The only issues, I did note, obviously I'm very familiar with this bike. I've ridden it a lot. I noticed the front end was moving a little bit on it. Down here, you know, where my hand is, there's like 4 screws that help hold this front assembly on. Somehow 3 of them backed out and I lost them. So fortunately, it's just I think it's a 6 mil screw, 20 millimeters in length. I was just able to go to a hardware store and get some. I actually have the factory ones coming in, so I'll pop them back in. That's on me for not checking that. I did. Listen, I mean, we were on some rough roads. You know, this bike took a beating. And to have those 3 screws pop out. Fortunately, the 4th one was still in there. And we might have broken some plastic or something, but it wouldn't have been detrimental to the trip. And then after I got home, washing this thing and rebuilding the forks on it, I noticed there was one little screw. I'll show you a picture of it. It was a little body screw down there by basically like by the radiator that came out. That holds one of these side covers on, but there's multiple screws that hold that on. So that's on order. That'll be here in a couple of days, but that's it. Bike was awesome. Honestly, and I've had this bike for a really long time and ridden it all over the place. it impressed the hell out of me again on this trip. So the only things I'll talk about that I have an issue with, this bag, it's about as old as the bike at this point. I have a replacement. I know I cussed this thing when I first got it. If you didn't see that video, I'll try to link it up there. Zipper's worn out, it's faded. The quick release device is no longer really working on it. I don't know, I mean, I guess I got 8 years of use out of it, so I can't complain too much. What did that come out to? Like $12 a year to $1 a month, so not too bad. The one thing I will give credit to, I ordered this, and it's got some stuff strapped to it. I ordered this Nelson Rig Adventure Pack. This isn't even zipped out all the way. This is just in like stock form without the expansion. This thing was awesome. You might not need something this big. I'll link it down below. It was great. The camera I'm shooting on right now is an upgraded camera. Everything you guys are gonna see from here on out is 4K. The camera's got a big lens on it. It's got a microphone on it, like all this stuff. So the tank bag wasn't really gonna fit it any longer. So I brought this along. It also carried, you know, some of our chain lube and some other cameras and stuff in there. The other thing you probably saw on top of it, I got those Tusk bottle holders. One of them has a 30-ounce fuel container in it, so we had some extra fuel. We never needed it. The other one actually just has like some cleaning spray. My sister had one strapped on to her bike that actually carried a bottle of water. Imagine that. But that pack is, that thing's really awesome. And also, like, the inside of it's gray, so you can actually find things. So many bags are black on the inside, and then, you know, your cameras or whatever it is you're taking, it might not be cameras. So many things are black, and then they're sitting inside something that's black, and just makes it tough to see. Having a lighter color interior actually really helps. The zippers are water, I don't know if they're waterproof, they're at least water resistant. Nothing ever got wet in there, even when we got caught in the rain. So anyway, I really like that pack. Was able to strap it on real easily. So that's it. I mean, there's nothing like you don't, you know, best case scenario, you don't want things to be too exciting. You want the bikes to do what they were made to do, which is take you places and ride them. So super impressed with both bikes. When you see the video series, the dirt and grime and mud and everything we got, I'm not surprised, you know, and part of it's on me. I should have kept the forks a little bit cleaner as we were going through that stuff, but whatever. These forks had 18,000 miles on them. These are the, I hadn't done anything to the 890 at all, so we got, you know, almost 13,000 before we were rebuilding those, and they probably needed rebuilt before then anyway. So that's it, guys. That's how my 2021 890 Adventure R did, and my 2016 1290 Super Adventures. Sorry for interrupting, but as I was going back editing this video, I realized I left out 2 bits of information I wanted to share. One has to do with the tires. You know, before we left, we put on brand new Dunlop Trailmax Mission tires. So how did they hold up? Actually, extremely well. So I went and looked at the, this is on the 890. The front started out with a tread depth of 7 millimeters. We put roughly 6,000 miles on the bikes on this trip. It was like 5,900 and change. So it started out at 7 millimeters tread depth on the front. It's now at 6 millimeters. So basically no wear. The rear on the 890 started out at 11 millimeters of tread depth. It now has 8 millimeters. So I don't know what the math is on that and how long they can last. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to wear linear, but pretty impressive. 1290, it started out with a little bit thicker tread depth on the front. It started out with 8 millimeter. It's at 7 millimeter. So again, almost no wear. Strangely, it actually has less tread depth on the rear than the 890 tire does. It started out with 10 millimeters. It did show some wear. It's down to 6 millimeters, but it's still got plenty of life left in it. So again, we could figure out the math on that and go, oh, it used up a certain percentage, but it all comes down to the type of stuff you're riding, how fast you ride, you know, all these sorts of factors. But for the route we took and the type of riding we did, wanted to share that information with you. The only other thing I wanted to touch on is I did check the spokes on the front and rear wheels this morning. Now, they were all torqued to spec prior to leaving. The 890, the rear had a couple of spokes that were loose, and when I say loose, you know, if you're going around checking them audibly, you wouldn't really notice it. They were half a turn out, something like that, to get them torqued back to spec. Front, yeah, there's about a dozen of them. It definitely needed tightened up. It wasn't to the point where it was dangerous or anything, but they definitely needed tightened up, and took care of that this morning. 1290, perfect. I mean, perfect. I was kind of surprised given the weight of the bike and the thrashing I gave it. And I thought for sure, man, if either bike's going to need tightened up, it's going to be the 1290, especially on the front wheel. And it was great. So now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Back to the video. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, considering that subscribe button, because if you got motorcycles, well, or if you like motorcycles, this is the place to be. If you have any questions about anything we went over like earlier in the video about the prep versus, you know, I didn't have to do anything to this bike except add gas to it, and we checked tire pressures. That was it. Let me know down in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon.